start recording. There we go. All right, so the lecture is getting recorded, but the mic is usually just picking me up, so you don't have to worry about if you ask a question, it will pick up your voice. In fact, anytime you guys ask a question, I need to repeat the question so that it would be recorded. My name is Tak. Okay, if you don't know my name, please read the syllabus. Because my name is on the syllabus, it's also in the schedule. Okay, so read the syllabus. I cannot overemphasize the importance of reading the syllabus because I am making the assumption that everybody has read and understood the syllabus and the all the policies in the syllabus will be enforced. Okay, so I will do what I said I would do in the syllabus in this class. So that's kind of important. And to find the syllabus, you sign into Canvas. This is not the view that you get. Let me switch to your view. All right, so this is more kind of what you would see in this class. The syllabus is right here. It is under course information. It will tell you about my office hours. It will tell you about my late policy. It will tell you about how I grade. It will tell you about, what percentage of a score do you need in order to pass the class, the number of exams, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so read the syllabus. I don't want to waste face-to-face, lecture time to talk about something that is already written. Okay. So unless you have a question, a specific question about the syllabus, I'm not going to talk about the syllabus in the class. I'll be good with that. Okay, because that's really a waste of time, when we have a lot of topics to go over. There's a shared folder which is not really useful for the time being, but if you want to explore, the shared folder on Google Drive, feel free to do it. The exam schedule is as scheduled by the college. In other words, if you go follow this link here, it will bring you to the American River College final exam schedule. This one being a full face-to-face in-person class has a designated day and a designated time in the finals week for our final exam. And I'm just going to follow that. Okay? So I'm hoping you guys can follow the instructions to find out on which day at what time we are going to have our final exam. Okay, because people who cannot do that will find this class to be quite difficult. Okay, because just following instructions, is a very important part of this class. This one here is something that I kind of put together of something else that I put together. It's a compilation of things that I have put together over, I would say about a year or two of time. So I do want to go over this a little bit because some of you are newer students, so you are coming from high school either directly or you may have a very small amount of time, spent as a college student. So I'm going to talk about a few things. I will point out a few things, but you get to read all this stuff here. All right, the first one is the importance of taking notes. Okay, I have seen a lot of people come to my classes, even the capstone classes, with nothing other than a cell phone. And for the entire class, all they do is this. Now, it is possible that they're taking notes by thumb typing, but I really doubt it. Okay, occasionally they would point the phone up to click a picture on the projector, even though I have told everybody already that the lecture was recorded. So that's kind of, you know, I find it kind of interesting. Okay, so let's go back to note taking. Yes, well, you have to sign in to. How are you not being able to sign in? Okay? So there is a link that says student login. Click that. And the first thing you need to go to do is, I'm gonna guess this one. hmm All right. So knowing how to sign in to Canvas is super important. Yes, this computer is. Try to switch to a different workstation, like this one here. So if your desk does not have a workstation, just open the cover and then pull the computer up like that. And then the keyboard and the mouse are usually, in the tray. If they are not, we'll tell the IT people so they can fix it. There you go. All right. So back to note taking. So the first question is, why do we need? Okay, so are there any questions I can address? Okay. Yes, you have a. Mhm. Yeah, that's fine. Not a problem. Yeah, you guys can check your cell phone. I understand, there are many reasons, that are actually legitimate that you have to look at your phone sometimes, and sometimes there may be something happening at home, and you need to keep an eye on something, and you just need to, kind of check periodically. I get it. Okay, your Ring camera, is giving you an alert. You need to kind of check. Okay, who's at my door? I get that. Okay, I do that too. So, don't worry about that as long as it doesn't make a sound or vibrate and cause, attention, distract other students. It's perfectly okay. Hmm. That's fine. Yeah, it's for medical purposes. It's not a problem. Okay. So back to note taking. Why do we need to take notes? Yep. And why do we need to do that? Because we forget. Very good. So we have a very short-term memory. Okay, so unless you're one of those, like 0.01% of people who has a photographic memory, you see something and you remember it, forever, you're gonna need to take notes. Your short-term memory can only retain information for about 30 seconds, not 30 minutes, 30 seconds, unless it gets refreshed. In other words, if I talk about a concept and I stop talking about it for about 30 seconds and you don't write anything down, you're going to forget. Okay? 30 seconds. So at the time of the lecture, most people would go like, but I get you all the time when I'm in your lecture, when I'm listening to you, I seem to be understanding everything. I do not feel the need to take notes. Well, okay, let me give you an analogy. So imagine there's a faucet. You turn it on, okay, water is flowing, right? And you're trying to hold that water with your hand like this, not even cupping it like this. You go like this. Do you think your hand is going to feel wet? Yeah, okay. And you think that my hands are wet, and therefore I'm retaining that water, okay? And then at the end of the class, we turn off the faucet, and then your hand is still a little wet, but most of the water is not being retained. Hmm? You can go outside to answer a call. Yes. So that is the reason why we need to take notes. Okay, taking notes is having a bottle so that you capture the water as much as you can. Then you guys will say, but Tech, you said that you're going to record the entire lecture. I don't need to take notes because you're recording everything. Yes, I am recording everything that you see on the projector. I'm recording everything that I said. I'm not recording your thoughts. That is the big difference. Okay. So when you have a question about something that I presented and you go like, well, I think I can figure this out, but I don't have time right now. You write down that question on your notes. Okay. You go like, okay, put a question mark, put a few words down, put a question mark so that later after lecture, you can go back to those questions that you have written down and then you try to figure out the answer to those questions. If you don't write anything down, you are not going to remember the questions that you had. Is that okay? Now, I do want to clarify, I do answer questions. If you have any questions during class, you can raise your hand and go ahead and ask your questions. Usually after I finish my sentence or within the context of what I'm talking about. So feel free to ask questions in class. But there are those moments we go like, well, I'm not ready to ask the question. I don't even quite know how to ask the question. So you kind of jot down a few words, a question mark, so that you can remind yourself later on to go back and try to answer those questions yourself. And if you cannot, that's okay. Come to my office hour. I'll be more than happy to help you answer those questions. But the key is if you don't write down those questions, you won't remember. Is that okay? There are books written, and people making money out of taking notes. So if you look up, note taking as a note taking second brain, okay, there is an entire website, an entire franchise, that is about, taking notes, building a second brain as, but taking notes is the key of quote unquote building a second brain. It's not really a second brain because it doesn't really help you think or help you process the information, but it does help you retain and organize the information that you need in order to succeed in classes like this. Okay? There may be classes where you don't need to take notes. I can almost guarantee you that this is not one of those. Okay, so that's important because I want to talk about the importance first before I just go like, okay, you should take notes. But why should I take notes? That's the reason why you should take notes. Okay, but just telling people that they should take notes doesn't really help. Okay, but how do I take notes? That's what these modules are for. Okay, they actually give you some instructions. In some cases, it gives you a template. So let me show you this one here. This one gives you a paper template. Okay, so if you click on this one, it's a PDF that looks like this. You can download it and print it out on the printer. So the way it is organized is there's a small section that is called pre-lecture notes. There's a section called post-lecture notes, and there's a larger portion that is called in-lecture notes. So the whole idea is before class. Now, obviously, the first class usually does not count because we haven't really talked about much yet. But for all the subsequent classes before the lecture, like before you come here, before you come in here, you want to kind of think about what do I need to remind myself about the topics before class. Maybe I have a question that I need to ask the professor during the lecture. Write it down here. Maybe you want to remind yourself, okay, so we're going to talk about this, in this lecture. So let me just kind of refresh my memory on the related topics. That's that stuff goes to the pre-lecture notes, and you want to write down the date, when you created or when you fill in that section. This larger section is for in-lecture notes, okay? It is basically what you do, what you write down when I'm talking in the lecture. So this is where you go like, oh, okay, I just have a eureka moment. I just made the connection between this and this over here. The professor did not say anything about it. I figured that out on my own. Write it down here, okay? The questions that I talked about earlier, okay, you're not quite clear about what I said, but you think you can figure it out. Write that question over here. Important sections of my lecture. Okay, the professor just started to talk about blah blah blah. Okay, well, since the lecture is being recorded, it kind of makes sense to jot down the time, look at the clock, jot down the time so that it's easier for you to find that portion of in the video recording. So if you ever need to go back to go like, okay, I think I missed a few words that are important when I took the notes, you can always go back to the video recording and get all that too. Okay? So this is the portion where you kind of jot down your notes during the lecture, and then after the lecture, okay, hopefully within a day or so, you want to go to the post-lecture note here, and then you try to answer the questions. You try to, kind of write down your insight based on the class, what you have learned in that particular class, and so on. This is a completely paper-based approach. Okay, you don't need a high-tech device. It's a PDF. You can just print it out on pieces of paper, bring it with you, and I would actually suggest you not to use double-sided and use single-sided when printing. So this way, if you ever want to organize all your notes, you can lay out everything. There's no need to flip over to see what is on the opposite side. It makes it easier for you to kind of get an overview of all the material so that you can reorganize things and go like, oh, okay, this actually talks about that. And there is a page number at the bottom as well. Okay, so there's a page number here so that you can actually have quote unquote an address for each page so that you can say on the later notes, you can say refer back to page 2 of the notes for CISP 300 because this concept was first introduced on that particular day. Is that okay? So this is a paper-based approach that I think everybody can actually make use of. There's no need to spend a lot of money on a digital tablet or an iPad or use a computer. It is strictly just on paper with a pencil. Okay, so you can read more about this in the modules, and some of you probably have all the skill set already, to take notes and kind of study after class. So this is me making sure that everybody start at a place where they understand the importance of taking notes. Do we have any questions at this point? Yes, you click on Canvas. Yep. hmm And then if the class doesn't appear, that means you're not on my roster. Then we have a issue that we can deal with after class. Yes. Ah, very good. That's a good question. I do not have a book. I write all the material that is related to this class, but I was sharing with the class a little bit earlier that I'm planning to redo everything, and I just got the assignment to teach this class last Friday. So I'm just kind of on my way to, kind of edit and create new content for this class. So you can only, I'm a slightly ahead of the lecture. So right now we have one module that is, useful for you guys to read and the homework assignment related to that. So we'll talk about that, during the lecture. But everything, there's no textbook to buy for this class. Everything is, basically OER, which is open educational resources, which from your perspective means it is free. Okay. From my perspective, it means the freedom to change the content. In other words, if there's a topic that you go like, well, that wasn't very clear, Tech, after a discussion, it became, more clear, then I can go and easily change the content to include a better explanation or additional examples. So that's, it gives us flexibility. It gives you, free book, basically free content, but it also gives me the flexibility to change the content as necessary. So that's a very good question. Thank you. hmm Question? Nope. Okay. I thought there was a question. All right. So getting back to this, okay. This is for note taking. And then this one is kind of interesting. I was trying to put myself in your shoes of, what do I need to do if I need to understand something that is difficult? What do you mean? What do I mean by difficult? It's complex and it is abstract. It is something that I haven't seen before. Okay, it's a challenge. So, in order to put myself into that situation, that some of you are, in this class, which is good. Okay, I was trying to learn something that is completely new to me, quantum computing. I really do not have the math background to understand quantum mechanics, so I have to learn a lot of new math in order to understand quantum mechanics. So this particular module is really dry and boring if you're trying to read the quantum mechanics part. Don't read that part, okay? What you want to do is to only read everything in a box. Because what the boxes are doing is to give you suggestions of what to do when you are taking a STEM class where the concepts are abstract, complex, and it spans over a lot of different things. Okay, so you just read the parts in boxes, but if you have a passion to understand your math and quantum computing, you can also read the rest. Okay, it is my journey of understanding and reading about quantum computing. Okay, so the value of this one is I am telling you guys how I study when I am in a class where I feel out of my elements completely. Okay, so I can summarize the approach in two words. Well, a few words, not just two. One is it is rabbit hole thinking. Have you guys heard of that phrase? Chasing after the rabbit hole. Okay, I don't know. I don't remember exactly how that phrase go, but it means if you don't understand something, you keep digging until you get to the bottom. You go like, okay, now I feel comfortable. That's the rabbit hole approach of understanding something. You can go ahead and find a seat and sign in to Canvas while you're at it. So that's rabbit hole. But the rabbit hole approach has one problem. When you are six, seven levels down, in the rabbit hole, like you're right clicking something on Wikipedia and then right clicking something on Wikipedia and right clicking something on Wikipedia. By the time you get to the Wikipedia page that you go like, okay, this I understand, you're gonna go like, wait, why was I here in the first place? What was I trying to understand to get to this place? So you have to be able to backtrack. You have to go back to the earlier points. So this also talks about a technique to do that, which is keeping notes, but in a nested list format. So if you scroll down, where's my nested list? Uh, okay. I'm looking for a nested list inside the square boxes, not that one. It's something that has a lot of nesting. So I apologize for all the rapid scrolling because it's not comfortable from your perspective. I cannot find it. There is an example, of a nested list as a way to keep track of where I am and why I'm over there. I just cannot find the example right now. Mm, Anyway, so this describes the approach of how I studied as a college student. Do you have to work the same way in order to succeed in this class? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, we all learn differently. We all think differently. We all take information in differently. But I'm only describing what worked for me, and still works for me. Okay, so that's the purpose of this particular module. And then the next one is called GitHub Markdown OER for students. This one is kind of interesting. It might be a little bit too much for a class like this, but I'm going to share that anyway. You can read it. How many people know what is Markdown? Nobody. Okay, very good. So Markdown is a quote unquote markup language. Okay, the name Markdown is a play of the word markup. Okay, so Markdown really is a markup language, but it's called Markdown. It is a very easy format to understand. It's not like HTML where you have to remember all the elements and it's complex and your text doesn't look like text anymore by the time you're done. This one is super easy. Okay, so it, it's not required for this class. Okay, but if once you know how to use Markdown, it makes note taking a lot easier because you can type your notes instead of handwriting your notes. So that's the purpose of this particular module. This one talks about CIS as a prospect career choice. It really kind of talks about, okay, let me just click it so that you can see what it is. It talks about, personal strength and interest alignment. Okay, and this is something that I feel is really important. Is if you want to be successful in something, you really need to be interested in that something first. I know it doesn't really resonate with a lot of people, but I think it really is important, and I can tell you why. Interest is more important than strength or aptitude because I don't think I'm particularly smart. Okay. I am curious, but I'm not particularly smart. It would take me a long time to learn something new, but I enjoy the process. In other words, if somebody is smarter than me and they only have to spend 1 day to learn something, whereas I have to spend 3 days, but that someone else is not interested in the subject, that person is just torturing himself or herself for 1 day. For me, it is like 3 days of enjoyment because I love the process. So that is important. Okay. Time frame, talks about what do you need in order to get a job as a software engineer or something along that line. So this is just information. If you are kind of still on the fence about whether you want to pursue a career in CIS or not. So it gives you a little bit more information. Let's see. The next one is time budgeting and management for college students. It is generally useful. It starts with time budgeting. Time budgeting means you need to make sure that you have enough hours in a week to handle all of your classes. Okay, so the first question I'm going to ask is for each hour in lecture, like right now, okay, for each hour that you're inside the classroom in a lecture, how many hours are you expected to spend to kind of review your own notes, revise your own notes, study, do your homework, and so on? That is correct. 2 hours. Very good. So this class has 54 lecture hours in this semester. So that means you have to spend 108 hours after this class, you're not in the classroom to do all your studying, to do your homework, to contemplate on the concepts, okay? You know, and that time is necessary. So a lot of people, when they try to budget the time, for a semester, they do not factor in those 2 extra hours for every hour in lecture. So what would happen in that case? The first week is fine, okay? Everybody is just spending time to talk about the syllabus, okay? There's no actual material. Second week is okay, but by the time we get to mid-semester, things get piled up. By the time we get close to the end of the semester, things are out of control, okay? It is not about time management. It is about budgeting. Management is useless if you don't have budget to begin with. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is still early enough in the semester, so I kind of urge everybody to factor in how much time it really takes in order to take each class so that you can if you think that you're taking too many classes, consider dropping your load a little bit just so that make sure that you have enough time to handle everything throughout the entire semester. Okay? I just want to get it out, because that is actually important. And then it talks about your time management. Structure is important. Okay, in-person classes are great, I think, because if I were the one teaching an online asynchronous class, I can tell you I'll be the first one to goof off. Okay, you won't be hearing from me for a few weeks. Everybody will go like, "Where's the professor?" There's no interaction whatsoever with the professor. That's what happens when I teach online, and that's why I only teach in-person classes. Okay, I know my limits. I have ADHD and a few other things that will not make me a very good professor online. But in person, I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm here every Monday, Wednesday from 9 to 10:30, 10:20. Okay, I have a routine. I prepare for this class, the day before, or 2 days before, and then after class, I kind of handle all the clerical stuff. There is a structure to it. Okay, so some people benefit more from structure because they lack self-discipline. Okay, I'm guilty as charged. Okay, some other people have more self-discipline and they can take online classes without a problem, but it is a factor. Short-term planning, okay, ASAP as soon as possible versus JIT, which is just in time, okay? It depends on the personality, okay? There's no way I can use the ASAP approach, okay? I know that. But I'm also pretty good at getting things done on time based on the deadline. So I'm deadline driven. So it is up to you, okay? But it's important to track what needs to be done, okay? Because even though I'm using just in time and I'm deadline driven, I need to know the deadlines. So that means, one thing that can really help is all the homework assignments on Canvas, they can all appear on your mobile device as events, okay? How many people know how to do that? Okay, we got one, okay? So I will show you how to do that. It's really easy. In fact, I'll do it right now. So, from the note-taking perspective, it means, oh, okay, this is some instruction that I might want to revisit after class. So you might want to jot down the time, which is about 10:30, and the topic is, okay, how do I integrate Canvas events into my mobile device? Okay, so that's one thing that you can do with note taking. It's just taking that note. I just need to know where in the video I can find this piece of information. So what you do is you go to the calendar of the class. So you go to view course calendar. I opened it in a new tab just so that it doesn't mess up my current tab. And then you scroll all the way to the end. Oh, no. Okay. So right here is calendar feed. So click on that and follow the instruction. It works for Google Calendar, on a mobile device. It works on, iCal, Outlook, etc. And this is a live feed, okay? It doesn't just put all the events that are currently in Canvas onto your calendar. It is a subscription that you don't have to pay, okay? So every time I make a new homework assignment, it's going to be on your calendar. Now, not immediately, there's a slight delay, okay? Nonetheless, you can open your calendar on your mobile device and scroll down and go like, oh, okay, there's this homework assignment due in 2 days. I better get started on that one. You scroll down a little bit more. There's another one due in 4 days or so. You can plan ahead of time. Is that okay? I think that is really important. And then for people like me, who is not particularly organized and with ADHD, I find it helpful to put a calendar on the home page on your mobile device. So when I turn on my phone, the first thing I see is a calendar. Okay, you can also turn it into an agenda so that you can see, oh, okay, these are the things that I need to do today. There's a homework assignment due, and so on and so forth. Okay, I highly recommend that approach because it really helped me remember what needs to be done and remind me, just so that I can see like 1 or 2 days ahead of time as well. Okay, so these are things that I feel really helpful, at least for myself. I hope some of you find it useful as well. Um, and then we have another one on note taking again, and this is a concept mapping tool. Okay, so this is a little bit of self advertisement because I feel pretty proud of this. It is a Google Sheet, okay, and you can make a copy to kind of use it on your end too. So the way it works, there's also a link to the documentation, so it is quote unquote self-documenting. So the way it works is there's one sheet here that talks about concepts. Now, obviously, this does not apply to this class. It's just an example, okay? So you put all the concepts all the words, all the phrases, all the definitions and whatnot onto this particular sheet here, which is called concepts. And then the next sheet talks about relations, which is a much shorter one. So it just says depends on, is a part of, leads to, specializes to. So all of these you can customize any way you want. The magic happens to the connections part. So now, I want to capture the concept of transistors specializes to p-type transistor. In other words, a p-type transistor is a special kind of transistor. We also have NAND circuit, depends on transistors, and so on. Okay, obviously this does not apply to this class, but the approach does. Okay, so once you have captured all of this stuff here using just a spreadsheet, it's a Google sheet, you go back to click here, and there's a link here. So you click on this link, and I'm going to right click and open in a new tab, and voila, it gives you a map. It gives you a graphical representation of all the stuff that is captured, all the concepts and how they relate to each other. Can someone tell me what does understanding mean? What does understand as a word mean? To comprehend, okay, very good. But what does that mean also? That's good. That's Yes, it's all of those, but the most important part, the most important difference between understanding and memorizing is what? Uh, yeah, go ahead. Learning, okay, and application. But what do you need in order to apply what you have learned? Knowledge is easy, okay? It's just words. Wikipedia has plenty of knowledge. But how do you apply the knowledge on Wikipedia to solve problems? Yes, conceptualize. Okay, very good. So we are all okay. So you guys are all correct. Okay, all the answers are correct. They're all pieces of what understand means. But the most important part of understand is the connection between the concepts, how the concepts relate to each other. That is the most important piece of quote unquote understanding. This helps you visualize that. Okay. Some people are more visual and other people are less visual. I am not exactly visual. I'm kind of used to abstract thinking. Visualization doesn't really help me, but it does help some people. When they see a map, they go like, "Oh, okay, I can see how all of these things connect now." So this is a tool available to you so that you can generate your own map, for this class. But please do not ask me for a map for this class because that is not my job. It is also something that I cannot do because I cannot see things from your perspective. What you see is a certain kind of connection may not occur to me, and the way I encode information may not work for you either. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. So that's, I think it's a tool. Okay, once again, these are all optional stuff. You don't have to do it. There's nothing to turn in. I will not ask you to turn in a concept map, for a particular topic, but they're tools. Okay, they're tools available to you. All right. So do we have any questions after these, 35 minutes talking about things that are not really exactly programming, but it's more about topics related to how to take a class. Okay, what are good practices, what are the skills that you need in order to succeed in a class such as this? Do we have any questions? Now, I know some of you are seasoned students, so if you have more tips to share, don't hesitate to let me know. I can just write another module and include it in, and even mention your name if you want to have your name mentioned. I don't have a problem with that. Okay? Because we are all here to learn. I am learning every semester. I started teaching in year 2000, and before that, I was in industry, and I'm still learning every semester. I'm learning more these days, not so much the technical stuff, but I'm learning more about learning because the only thing I know is how I learn, but I need to know how other people learn too in order to be effective. So, do we have any questions? No questions? All right. So, I'm just going to emphasize the importance of taking notes again, okay? And if you did not bring anything to take notes today, I still got, a small pile of paper here. So if you want to have a piece of paper, I got that. I don't have a lot of spare, pens, there's one. So anyone who wants to use this, just let me know. All right. So now we are actually going to dive in to the first topic. Okay. So we're diving into the first topic, which is the syntax, which is syntax and the syntax to describe syntax. Okay, and you will find that I play with words a lot. I personally like memes a lot. Okay, all right. So this is in. Okay, let me back up a little bit here. This is your view. Okay, so everything that I use to teach in this class, they are on Canvas by the time we have the lecture. Okay, it is potentially helpful for you to open up the same page on your end because when I scroll around like a crazy monkey, you guys can stay put on your screen, okay, so that you don't get disoriented as I go like, okay, let me go find that section, scroll back and forth. You can just stay put on a particular screen. So I will do that, okay, not scrolling like a crazy monkey, but go to here, and I'm gonna right click on it. All right. So the first thing is, hmm, well, should I print all the notes out here on paper so that I can, kind of put my handwriting notes on the, actual, printed, module that the professor has written? Yeah, sure, go ahead. That's one way to do it. Okay, the copyright for all of these documents is OER, or actually it's called Creative Commons, which means everybody has a permission to kind of download, print it out, make your changes to it, and so on. So don't feel don't do not hesitate to download and print as you want. I'm going to show one more cool feature here. If you scroll to the end of all of my modules, there's this little phrase here that says improve this page by contributing and editing. If you are to click on it, it will bring you to GitHub. And if you already have signed into your GitHub account, it will give you the ability to quote unquote edit the document. Now, this is Markdown, okay? This is the Markdown format, and this is how we make bulleted list, which is just starting a line with an asterisk. And if you want to have a nested bullet list, you just have to kind of indent the line with two spaces. So that makes it very easy to read, as opposed to in HTML, you have to use the bracket UL, element, and then inside everything has to use the bracket LI, element. And it makes the document really difficult to read. This is still pretty readable. So I want to illustrate this because if you have a GitHub account and you want to go like, okay, the way tech, talk about this topic here really sucks. Okay, I have a much better way to explain that. Well, go ahead and change it then. Okay. In other words, you can use this as a way to change the document to include your own insights and your own examples and your own understanding of the material. Okay. Then you go like, but what if tech makes some changes to the document? You can actually incorporate my latest updates into the document that you have started to modify. That is the power of GitHub. Okay. So I know most of you do not know what GitHub is or how to use it, but I'm just telling you, if you want to learn that, I can write a module to talk about that. Okay. But I think it gives you yet another way to capture your thoughts and to learn in a more efficient manner in classes that incorporate the use of GitHub. Okay, and besides, this is something that your employer expect you to know how to use anyway, eventually. So learning it earlier is not going to hurt. So anyway, it's just a demonstration of how it might be useful to you. At the end of modules, I use ChatGPT. Yes, I use ChatGPT myself to create questions. Okay, so all of these questions are clickable. So there's the question, you think about it a little bit, you can even write down your own answer, and then you can click it to see what the correct answer is. Okay, so it's a form for you to kind of review the material and kind of ask yourselves, okay, am I really understanding the material? Okay, and I can even give you the prompt to generate these questions so that if you feel 10 questions are not enough for me, I want 50, I can give you the template to do all that. All right. All right. So having talked about all of these things, now we're going to dive into the actual topic here. There are three questions that I encourage people to think about all the time. Okay. What is this? What am I learning today? What is it? What is the name of this thing? Okay, so what we are learning today is syntax and the syntax to describe syntax. Okay, let's just pause there. Okay, do we understand what that means? What is syntax? Say it one more time. It's not so much, it is about the structure of where to put the words. Okay, in other words, it's the programming way of saying grammar. Okay, and if you are a seasoned English speaker, you would notice that sometimes I got the grammar wrong. I would use the wrong tense, I would use the wrong plural, or the wrong verb based on the tense and the plurality. I would make those mistakes. That's grammar. Those are rules related to what words to use, where do we put the words, and so on, and what punctuation do we use. That's grammar. Syntax is just a fancy way to describe exactly the same thing, but for programming languages. Is that okay? All right. And anytime you have a question about, okay, I'm not really understanding what syntax is, I really think that Google search is good for this. So you can just ask your Google, what does syntax mean? So there we go. It looks it up and gives you an explanation. Okay. Another resource, okay, I use ChatGPT. I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT, which I think is a reasonable price to pay. But this one you can actually interact with. You can say, please explain what syntax means in a in the context of a programming class. And it comes back with an explanation. Okay, there we go. So these are resources that you can use. I think you can still use ChatGPT for free. They just limit you on the number of prompts per hour. There's a rate you cannot ask too many questions too quickly, but it can still be available for free. Okay. But since there's no textbook to buy for this class, I'm just thinking, use that money to subscribe to ChatGPT. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, I think the current way, has a limitation because I've heard from other people that they have an account. In other words, that they sign in, but they are not paying for the $20. And there's a certain number of prompts that you can make, per hour or, I don't know exactly how they throttle, the prompts. Yeah, but if there's no limit, even better. Okay, just keep in mind that there might be a limit on the number of prompts you can ask on a per hour or per half hour basis or stuff like that. Okay, but it is a resource. Okay, it's a very useful resource. Using it the right way, ChatGPT or LLMs, large language models in general, can be very beneficial. When you're studying a class in STEM, using it the wrong way, it can be detrimental. Okay, so you gotta have to think about how am I using this as a resource. Okay, all right. So getting back, so I apologize for all the kind of flip flopping because I want to illustrate all the resources that you can use as I teach the class. Okay, so I hope that's not too distracting to you. All right, so that's the question of what we are dealing with. And the next question is, why do we need to learn this? Why is this topic in this class? Okay, well, it is in this class because one, eventually you need to learn it. Okay, because how do you learn a new programming language? Okay, there are two approaches to learn something new. One is to learn by example. Okay, I read a lot of code that somebody else has written, and I try to extract the rules out of those examples. That's one way to learn something new. The second way is to learn the fundamentals first. Okay, so in this case, learning the syntax is the fundamental way. You're learning all the fundamental of what a sentence is, what a statement is, what a condition is, and then you put everything together, knowing exactly the rules ahead of time. In other words, you're not trying to learn the rules by observing examples, you're trying to learn the rules first by themselves, then you come up with something new on your own. Okay. I prefer this way of learning as opposed to learning from examples because learning from examples means there's always a chance that you did not learn something correctly. It's just that all the examples have not illustrated, one particular point yet. But learning it this way is the other way around, which means you're always learning the right way to do something, and then you can construct whatever you need to construct. Okay? Yes. Hmm? Can you write this in your notebook? You can write anything you want in your notebook. Yeah. But everything that I talk about and also on the projector is being recorded. So kind of keep that in mind so that you don't have to frantically try to write everything down. But your own thoughts is something that I cannot record. So that is the most important part that you need to record are your own thoughts. Okay, your questions, your understanding, your eureka moments, those are the things that you need to write in your notes. All right, so how is this done? Well, it is done by using a meta syntax language. Meta syntax does not have anything to do with Facebook or Zuckerberg. It has to do with meta in this case means between, okay, or higher level. So if we need to specify syntax using syntax, then the syntax to describe syntax is called meta syntax. Okay, so that's just a fancy word for saying, oh, okay, so this thing describes, the language that I need to learn. All right, so moving on. Do we have any questions about the first part? The what, the why, and to a certain extent, the how. The how is actually the bulk of the lecture. So, if you go like, I don't still understand the how part, it's okay. We're going to talk about that. But the what and the why are important. So, do we have any questions? Okay. Anytime you need more time to write some notes or to write down your notes, you can just raise your hand and just say, I need a minute. Okay. Or I need a little bit more time. And I'll just kind of pause and so that you guys have a chance to catch up. So do not hesitate to ask for a little bit more time to write down your notes because writing notes is really, really important. And it's not something for just for this class. Any class, especially STEM classes that you take, I encourage you to take the same approach. Okay, if you're rushing, you don't have enough time to write down everything that you need to write down, raise your hand and let the professor know that I need a little bit more time to write down some notes. Okay, what is the worst thing that can happen? The professor just goes like, well, we don't have enough time. I need to move ahead. That's it. That's the worst case scenario. But most of the time, most professors here, at least at ARC, they're pretty, flexible. They go like, okay, fine, just let me know when you're done. Okay, not a problem. All right, so we are now moving on to syntax or meta syntax. So we'll go here. The syntax of a programming language is like the grammatical rules of the programming language. It's not like it's exactly that. These rules are often specified by some form of meta syntax. In other words, it's a syntax to specify syntax. One commonly used meta syntax is called BNF, which stands for Backus nor form. Okay, it is the name of the two-person who started out using this particular form of meta syntax. So they basically it's just a name. The syntax of C++ is intermediate compared to other programming languages. A plain BNF description of C++ can be very difficult to follow, but a BNF description that makes use of hyperlinks is considerably easier to follow. And fortunately, someone, okay, Alessio Marchetti, has already created a hyperlinked BNF description of the syntax of C++. So this is something that I and we are going to refer to from time to time. Okay, don't try to read this on the first day. Okay, it is long and complicated. Okay, it looks like this. Okay, it is long and complicated. Okay, but we'll refer to it when it is time to refer to it. So now we start with how to read the BNF notation, and we start with the basics. Each syntactical rule, which is also called a production, consists of two parts. There's the left-hand side, the token that is being defined, and the right-hand side, which is what the token can be expanded to. All right, so right here, I am imagining that there should be some questions in your mind already, which is starting with, what is a token? Okay, if you go to any type of arcade center, okay, you put in like a $20 bill and then you can get a bunch of tokens. Well, we're not talking about those tokens. So in this sense, a token is nothing more than a placeholder. Okay, it is a placeholder with a name so that we can identify this placeholder versus that placeholder. Okay, so a token is a placeholder with a name. Placeholding for what? Okay, that's the next question because when you think of the word placeholder, it is holding the place for something. But what is it holding a place for? Well, it's holding the place for something, and that something can be a bunch of other tokens. It can also be what we call terminals, which are exactly the words or the punctuations that you need to use in the programming language. Yes, it's a placeholder. Yep, a token is a placeholder with a name so that we can identify which token we are referencing. So look, you can just think of a token as a placeholder with a name. All right. So in this example here, okay, there's a link to the exact example that I'm referencing. So if you open up a hyperlink here, this is how it is described. Iteration statement is a token, and it expands to while open paren, those are terminals. Condition is a token again, and then statement is a token again. So the way you read this syntax description is in this particular table, everything on the left column is a token, okay? And then the column on the right-hand side is how the token can expand. So it's a placeholder for a pattern. The pattern is now on the right-hand side, okay? So you can see that some tokens have only one rule associated with it. Like for range declaration only has one rule associated with it. So that means if you have this token, it has to expand to exactly this pattern here, which involves three additional tokens. But some tokens, like iteration statement, has a bunch of lines next to it. So these are all alternatives. In other words, an iteration statement can expand to this particular sequence of things. It can also expand to this sequence of things. It can also expand to this sequence of things, and so on. They are alternatives. So I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions. Are we? Yes. It means in this particular example, iteration statement can expand to while blah blah blah. It can also expand to do statement while blah blah blah. It can also expand to while open paren, blah 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 statement, and it can also expand to the last for statement. So there are four different ways to expand the iteration statement token. Is that okay? Okay, cool. I think it might be helpful for me to kind of jump forward a little bit and use a less complicated example. So let me just do that. So I will move ahead a little bit, do things a little bit out of order and go to the example part. Okay. So in the example part, this is just an explanation of, how a rule or a production is specified when we are not using a table format. So this little symbol here, colon, colon, equal, you can think of it as expands to or can expand to. Is that okay? So let me highlight the symbol and then I'll say that again. This particular symbol here is basically saying can expand to. Are we good? So on the left-hand side, we have a token. Okay, it specifies a particular token, but it can be expanded to a sequence of things, which can be other tokens and also a terminal. Anything that is in boldface is called a terminal. A terminal means exactly, you have to spell that word exactly the way it is in order to meet the requirement. In this case, blah, B-L-A-H, is exactly how you want to spell that word if you want to recognize a token one when you already have a token two followed by the word of blah. Do we have any questions about this really kind of single example of how we specify a production? A left-hand side, which is a single token, colon colon equals to, which is basically saying can expand to, and then on the right-hand side we have a sequence of either other tokens or or terminals. Tokens are always italic, and terminals are always boldface and not italic. So I'm using those to help differentiate what is a token and what is a terminal. Are we good with that? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yes. So I'll give you the next example, which is a little bit more complicated, but it illustrates the concept. So the R1 to R5, that's just the name of the rule itself. So I can refer to this as rule 1, rule 2, rule 3, rule 4, and rule 5. Okay, so R1 to R5 is just a designation of which rule we are referring to. So rule 1 says the token friend can expand to the terminal of ally or ally. Okay. The second one says the token friend can also expand to John. The token friend can also expand to Chang. So that's the alternative. In other words, when you are reading the text as a sequence and let's say you encounter the word John, then you go like, okay, so where does this word John can fit into? Then you look up this token, this R2 here, and it says John is a terminal that is expanded from friend as a token. Then obviously the next question is where does a friend go? Okay, we'll talk about that in the next two rules, which are R4 and R5. So this is friends in plural. So friends can expand to just a single friend, but friends, which is plural, can also expand to friends and then the terminal and then a single friend. So this is how we can specify, you know, um, a conjunction, using the and to connect multiple people who are friends within that group. Yes, a token can so there are several multiple. One is the same token, like friend in this case, has three alternatives. So it can expand to Ali, it can expand to John, it can also expand to Chang. Okay. And then to friends also has two alternatives. It can expand to just a single person, a single friend, but friends can also expand to something that is already friends, and then the exact word and then another thing that is also a friend. Is that okay? Okay. Let me fast forward just a little bit more. Okay. And oh, this is not the way I want it to be. So I'm gonna have to fix that. I hope this helps. So the boxes, okay, the rectangles are exactly the words in the order that it appear on the line. In other words, we are trying to parse, we're trying to find out the structure of the sentence of, well, not exactly a full sentence, but we're trying to parse a sequence of words. Okay, that's the best way to describe it. So the sequence of words is simply John and Ali and Chang. Okay, I want to see if that particular sequence of words can be seen as the token friends. Is that okay? So I'm trying to recognize the structure of a sequence of words. Are we good with that? The purpose of what I'm trying to illustrate? Are we good? Okay. So the first thing I do is, okay, John is a terminal, okay? And I want to see, what is John as a word? Well, John can be matched to friend as a token. Is that okay? John is a special case of a friend. What about the word and? Well, the word and does not really, um, it by itself, it doesn't go to a token. Okay. What about Ali? Oh, Ali's good. Okay. We know Ali is a friend. What about Chan? Chan is also a friend. So the dotted line is showing you what can be classified as what, can be recognized as what. Okay. So John as a word can be recognized as a token of a friend. Ali can also be recognized as a friend. Chan can also be recognized as a friend. Is that okay? Yep. And is just the English word and, which is saying, it's a conjunction. Okay, so there's no special meaning. The word and in this context has no special meaning other than it's just an English word. Okay, say that one more time. It is syntactically required. So in this kind of weird grammar, we need the word and in order to turn two friends into friends. Okay. So now let's follow the transformation here. So a friend token can also be recognized as friends. Okay. Why do we know that? Because we have this rule here. Friends can expand to a single friend. So I'm only going in the opposite order. I am recognizing, I'm looking at what is available as the right hand side. And then I say, oh, okay, so that sequence can be recognized as the token that is on the left hand side. Is that okay? All right. So let me go back to the graph here because I think the graphical way is probably easier to understand. So a friend can also be recognized as friends. And if I have friends and friend, because your Ali can be recognized as just friend, if I have friends and in the middle there's the terminal of and then also another friend, I go like, hey, there's another rule that I can fire, okay? Because we have found the right hand side of the rule. So now I can go like, okay, if I go to rule 5 or R5, I now have found friends. I have also found friend, and they are spaced out, or they are separated by the terminal of and. So I go like, oh, these three things together can be recognized also as friends. Okay, so I think this is the part that is the most difficult when people are starting to get used to this. Is you go like, oh, we have friends, we have the word and as a terminal, and then we have friend. When those three things are available in that particular order, now I can recognize that whole thing as friends. In other words, at this point, John and Ali is now recognized as a single token of friends. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the three things in that particular order can be recognized as a single placeholder as friends. That's basically what the rule is saying. Yep. I'm not sure whether I addressed the question. Yeah, it gets collapsed into just one single place token, a token that is called friends. Yep. Okay, so now what do we do? Okay, it's because we have processed everything up to Ali here. The next word to process is and. I go like, I don't really know where that what that belongs to. Okay, we just gotta leave it hanging. And then we encounter the word chang, Chang. And then we look at Chan and go like, well, can we fire any of those rules and turn this into a token? We go like, yep, okay. One of the rules, turn Chang into friend as a token as a placeholder. So once again, we now have friends, a terminal and another token of friend. So now we can go to R5, rule 5 again, and go like, do we have all three things in that particular order? Do we have friends as a token and as a terminal and another friend as a token? Yes. Are they in that order? Yes. So now we look at these three things. This, okay, let me use a mouse pointer so that I can specify which this and this friend here. When those all three are present in that particular order, we now say, okay, we can apply rule 5 one more time. So now the entire sequence of words is recognized as a single token placeholder called friends. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So one thing you can do is to come up with your own rules and try to say, okay, given these rules, what is quote unquote grammatically or syntactically correct? What sequence is grammatically correct? I do have one thing to fix, and this is actually a pretty good opportunity for me to show you what you can do as well. Okay, excuse me. This part here is not supposed to look like this. All the vertical bar is supposed to appear as a vertical bar and not appear as boxes. So I forgot to use a backslash to escape those things. So I can go here. I can go straight into the document, locate the portion that talks about that, which is further down a little bit right here. And these vertical bars is the problem because they are being used um, the engine that does the translation is misunderstanding the vertical bar as, oh, you want to make a table and these are the separators for the cells. It's the wrong interpretation. That's not my intention. So I have to use a backslash to escape it. So now I have to recommit, and it takes about a minute, before the document itself is updated. So while it is being updated, let me see if I can answer any questions that you might have up to this point. Yes, yes. Friends are the tokens. The word "and" is a terminal. I got what you said, but I wanted to be clear. And you will find me talking in a way that seems like I'm splitting hair and then splitting that split hair again. That is not me being critical of you guys. It is because with this job that is required. Okay, if you want to become a good computer scientist, you need to be very precise with what you say. And I just want to make that clear to the class so that people don't feel that, oh, you're just being mean to me. No, that was not the intention. The intention is just to make things as clear as possible. Yes, go ahead. Hmm? Oh, same question. Okay, very good. It's a terminal. It's called a terminal because it does not expand to anything else. So it is just a word that we expect to be separating a token friends and a token friend. In other words, every time in a sequence and you recognize, there's a token, a placeholder for possibly a bunch of words, but together they can be seen as friends as a token. You have another thing that can be seen as friend, and those two things are separated by the actual verbatim word and, then the entire thing can also be recognized as friends as a placeholder. Absolutely. Any other questions? So we got about 10 more minutes, okay? Um, I will try something new, okay? Which is I'll give you guys about 3 minutes to kind of talk to each other. If you're by yourself, you can kind of just slide your chair over to talk to somebody else if you want to. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. Just so that you can talk to another person and see if together you guys can figure out some more questions, okay? Or you have a gain a better understanding, and then we'll use the last 3 minutes of the class for you guys to ask me those questions so that I can kind of help to have a closure for this class so I can address everything. I'm not ready to give you the homework assignment yet, so I'm going to change the due date. So don't worry about the homework assignment that is already on Canvas. I'm not going to assign it today because I think we need a little bit more practice and explanation before we get there. The problem with a Monday, Wednesday class or Tuesday, Thursday class is there are 4 days before we meet again. Okay, so that means you kind of need to use those 4 days to kind of study and try to understand all the concepts. I understand. I know this is not easy to understand. Okay, it is abstract and it is something that you haven't seen before. Okay, the more reason that you kind of need the weekend to kind of work on it to let your brain kind of chew on it a little bit more over the weekend. So we'll go ahead and start the time for about 3 minutes for you guys to talk to each other, and then we have the last 5 minutes of the class for me to address any questions that you come up with. Is that okay? All right. So go ahead and talk to each other, and we'll get back to talk about things at 10:15. Hmm? Say again? Considered. Oh, what does it mean? Um, well, let me. Okay, so, all right. So, okay, where's that word? Okay, let's see. All right, so we wanna turn it off. Right click on it, and then do a Google search. Having been thought about carefully. Yep. You can also use Google Translate if you want to. You get Yeah. So that's how you can look up something really quick is to double click on the word and then go for a Google search. It usually will give you a pretty good answer. Very occasionally give you something that may not be what you're looking for. Yeah, I just refresh it so that this is consistent with what I have. Yep. And I like your attitude of trying to learn and not to translate everything, because translation actually slows down your process of learning new words in English. Yeah. Yep. Okay. If you're in it, you're a little bit late. It starts at 9 a.m. It ends at 10:20. Yep. So you're late, but sign into Canvas, because I'm gonna give you guys a way to sign in. No, I'm gonna recall the homework, but I will make you guys take roll today. Okay, so it's almost time. Give me a second here. Required access code, ENF. Due date is. I'll give you guys till 10:30. All right. Well, we have 3 minutes already. Was that useful? Being able to have some time to talk to your fellow classmates? Are there any questions as a result of that conversation? Okay. So yes, zero. We are starting from zero. The whole purpose of this class is to introduce your C++, but in a very elemental and fundamental way, so that you will be ready to take CISP 360 after this semester. So that's the objective of this class, is a prep class for CISP 360. But even for people with some programming background, this class is still going to be useful because of the way that I describe syntax and a few other things in a much more in-depth way than, say, the boot camp. All right. So I got one activity for you guys to do before we leave the classroom. I just created a role taking activity. So from your perspective, let me show you where you can find it. So view as student. So from your perspective, it is right here. It is called Roll On today, which is January 22nd, 10. This is the class that ends at 10:20. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, so click on it. Okay, this is my way of taking roll. Okay, you can do this on the cell phone or on the computer. It's up to you. It looks like a quiz, but it's not. Oh, I forgot to. Okay, I forgot to actually put a question here. We'll see whether this works. The actual password is BNF. So I'm going to put it on the whiteboard. Type BNF all in uppercase and then submit. And that's the whole thing. There's no question. I forgot to put a question there. That's okay. It's not a problem. Just click submit quiz. It will still leave a trail, so that I can see that you have participated. And that's the whole point. Okay. The whole point is I just need to know that you were here. So are there any questions about doing this step? This is why I asked you guys to sign into Canvas at the early, like early on, at the beginning of this class. Yeah, the passcode is BNF all uppercase. BNF. So once again, it is not an actual quiz, okay? It doesn't affect your grade in any way. It's just a way for me to quickly check that you are here in your present. So I don't like to pass a sheet of paper for people to sign, okay? Because that get lost sometimes. And this way, everybody kind of do it and it's quick. All right. So when you're done, signing in with the quiz, you are free to go. Make sure that you spend some time to digest the material that we talk about today. And I will send a link to where you can find the lecture recording. It's on YouTube. If you need to get it in a hurry, you just cannot wait. The channel name is Some Profs, Some Professors. Okay, that's my channel name on YouTube. I'll send it via announcement as well. Yep, go ahead.